Hello, ladies and gents. Today we're talking about global warming. It's an issue, and we need to get to the bottom of it. So first, we're going to talk about greenhouse gases and how it affects global warming, and about humans and how they are affecting the greenhouse gas emissions. Like, per se, transportation is about 29% of total U.S. greenhouse gas emissions, meaning your car, the bus you take, literally any of those, anything that transports you, unless it's a bike. So maybe ride more bikes per se. So U.S. is or GHG, a little abbreviation for y'all. G, a little abbreviation for y'all. Alright, now we're going to talk about energy and how that has to do with greenhouse gases and global warming. Such confusing things. Lucky for you, I am here for your needs and concerns. Energy-related ventures account for 86% of all greenhouse gas emissions linked to human activities, since power plants and related electricity generation operations produce 36% of total U.S. greenhouse gas emissions. Reductions in this sector can play a major role in slowing global climate change, meaning ride your bikes and probably stop using as much lights in the house. Just turn off the light if you don't need it on. I know for some of y'all, we are scared of the dark. I mean, I am. It's a little traumatic to talk about. So, to brief, I was so scared of the dark. It was such a rough patch. I couldn't go to bed without the lights off. Conquer your fears, because the world will die. Now, let's talk about buildings. You have to heat them, you have to cool them, We are so bipolar in our bodies. You know what I mean, Lizbeth?
Yeah, I understand.
She's always cold.
You gotta wear extra layers.
Yeah, we can just layer up, layer down. Think about that, because guess what? Building energy consumption accounted for 41% of total prime energy in the U.S. Isn't that crazy, y'all? This can also affect the ocean and our pretty little lake of Lago Tahoe. A little Espanol for y'all. I'm bilingual. So, what we do to the ocean is horrific, and so this can also cause things like deforestation and things like that, meaning that we can't have any more CO2. It's just we are affecting the environment in such awful ways. Now, let me tell you about methane, because CO2 isn't our only problem. Methane, cows, they fart a bunch. Well, we're also producing methane just like the cows, but not as a large rate. So methane has 80 times more warming power of CO2 over the first 20 years after it reaches the atmosphere. Even though CO2 has longer lasting effects, methane sets the pace for warming, meaning that the more methane that goes out, the faster we will heat up, and CO2 will stay longer into our atmosphere. Pretty scary stuff. So, chlorine and bromine are very bad too. They are abbreviated to CFCs, and they lead to the stratosphere and ozone depletion. Now we have a little commercial break. lead. They both use 75% less energy and also last longer. The side effects are helping global
warming.
Yes. Now we're going to talk about such a sad thing, diseases. Now, a vector organism can transmit infectious diseases from an infected human to an animal host or anything like that. The World Health Organization identifies the major global vector-borne diseases as malaria, dengue, chikungunya, yellow fever, Zika virus, lymphatic filariasis, and so much more that I cannot pronounce. Now, these are, they take people's lives, and they are awful. I once almost thought I had West Nile fever from a mosquito, and that's where we are mainly transmitting all of these diseases, is from mosquitoes.
In 2021, around 21 cases of Callejas is also known as the black fever, transmitted through female sandflies. Sandflies are moving up mountains because the earth is getting warmer, and they like being in the cold, which is now leading to more people getting infected with these little sandflies.
These mosquitoes are moving to what they like more, what weather they like more. So many of them thrive in these tropic areas. Most of these diseases thrive in these tropic areas. So as the world is getting warmer from our awful decisions of making cars, evil us, they are spreading these diseases. Mosquitoes are migrating. They are eating everyone alive, I like to say. Now, how does this affect people that live in cities and things like that? It's actually getting very scary. They're living in such compact urban areas that it's easier to spread, and the sanitation there is not clean at all. We should be watching ourselves, because the current world population of nearly 6.5 billion will double to 13 billion in the next 58 years, meaning this disease will get out of control. People will die.
And here's a little commercial break on how you can also help with global warming. You can start to eat more vegetables. Livestock like cows create greenhouse gases and use up a lot of water inland. Eating more vegetables equals less demand of livestock.
Now back to our beautiful host. If only you guys could see her, Lizbeth.
Impacts on food supplies. Agriculture and fisheries are dependent on climate. Higher CO2 levels can affect crop yields. Laboratories suggest that elevated CO2 levels can increase plant growth. More extreme temperatures and precipitation can prevent crops from growing, which can lead up to floods and droughts. And they can also harm crops and reduce yields. In 2010 and 2012, the high night temperature affected across the whole U.S. Corn Belt and premature budding due to the warm winters, which caused $220 million lost to Michigan because of their cherries. Dealing with droughts can come with a challenge in areas. Increased irrigation might be possible in places, but we may need more water. Over time, heat stress can increase vulnerability to disease, reducing fertility and reduce milk production of milk. In developing countries, adaptation options like changes in crop management or ranching practices or improvement to irrigations are more limited. Aquifers are being drained faster than filling up, a problem that could get worse as it heats up, which is happening in Pakistan, India, and the Northeast and China. Parasites and diseases that target livestock do better in warm and moist conditions. This can result in livestock farmers treating parasites, which can make crops go bad and there be less production of crops. And that is it for the impacts of food supply.
Now we're going to have another heartbreaking commercial break. Actually, this commercial is a little bit more upbeat because we're talking about planting trees. Now, we're having a lot of deforestation worldwide. And so
Which causes less CO2 in the atmosphere.
causes more.
More. And so maybe go plant a tree.
They're beautiful. Even if you just plant a little one, you're doing something. And people might be taken away from your generosity and go plant a tree
Just
themselves.
get up and go plant this tree.
It's not that hard, brothers and sisters, and the side effects are helping global warming.
Helping Mother Earth.
Oh, yes. Now we're going to talk about the thing that we need most. Water. We cannot live without it being mostly what we are made out of. Water. Yes. Climate change can affect the intensity and frequency of precipitation. Warmer oceans increase the amount of water that evaporates into air. When more moisture is in the air, it moves over land and converges into a storm system. It can produce more intense precipitation, for example, heavier rain and snowstorms.
Can start to eat more vegetables. Livestock like cows create greenhouse gases and use up a lot of water inland. Eating more vegetables equals less demand of livestock.
Reduces surface water and dries out soil and vegetation. It makes periods with low precipitation drier than they would be in cooler conditions. Climate change is also altering the timing of water availability, meaning that our crops and our vegetation and our agriculture is going all sorts of whack. In a warmer climate, a warmer upper layer in deep lakes slows down air exchange, which doesn't add that natural oxygen level that the water needs for the animals to survive. So not only are the plants dying that live in the water, so are our beloved species of fish, of snails.
And what happens when fish are no longer there? We can't eat any more sushi, and we can't have any more anything with fish.
No sushi. That sounds like a world I would not like to live in. It is quite delicious. More frequent droughts and shifting precipitation powers lower water levels in rivers, lakes, and streams, leaving less water to dilute pollutants. Higher temperatures cause more frequent algal blooms and reduce dissolved oxygen levels, which of both can cause, meaning that all the nasty stuff we put into our water, as our sewage, as oil, and things like that, they're not getting diluted and they're killing more and more fish. If droughts weren't enough, we are polluting the world. Now, the temperature and precipitation are key factors of affecting snowpack. Now, snowpack is glaciers and any snow caps on top of mountains, things that we need for certain types of habitats and life. So more precipitation will be expected to fall as rain rather than snow in most areas, reducing the extent and depth of snowpack, leaving us with more water and sea level, killing more fish, basically. We're going to have
another commercial break.
And then we will hear from our lovely co-host, Lizbeth.
If you have a roof rack on your car, you should maybe think about putting it down if you don't need it. Less weight in a car saves you gas, and it can also help produce less gas emissions. The warming of Earth is primarily due to accumulation of heat-trapping greenhouse gases, and more than 90% of this is trapped by heat and absorbed by the oceans. As this heat is absorbed, ocean temperatures rise and water expands. This is thermal expansion, which contributes to an increase in global sea levels. Human activities are at the root of this phenomenon, especially since the Industrial Revolution. Carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas emissions have raised temperatures and even higher in poles. As a result, glaciers are rapidly melting, caving off into the ocean and retreating on land. Sea levels are rising and oceans are becoming warmer. Longer and more intense droughts threaten crops, wildfire, and fresh water supply. From polar bears in Antarctica to marine turtles off the coast of Africa, our planet's diversity of life is at risk from the changing climate. Climate change threatens coastal areas, which are already stressed by human activity, pollution, invasive species, and storms. Sea level rise can erode and inundate coastal ecosystems and eliminate wetlands. Warmer and more acidic oceans are likely to distribute coastal and marine ecosystems. This region, which more than 40 million people call home, consists of more than 40 small islands, developing states spread across the Indian and Pacific Oceans, the Mediterranean, and the Caribbean. These low-lying coastal nations face similar challenges in that they have small populations, limited resources, remoteness, and susceptible to nature disasters and excessive dependence of the international community for trade. Sea level rise poses perhaps the greatest threat to these nations. Storm surges, flooding, erosions, and even possible inundation threatens the future occupancy of some islands. These are some significant threats to their vital infrastructures, water resources, fisheries, coral reefs, tourism income, and agricultural resources. And now for your next commercial break.
Here's your last commercial break. I have a little tip for y'all. To just unplug everything when you're about to leave the house. You don't need to have your phone charger plugged in, and you don't need to have all of this stuff, your air fryer plugged in. You don't need that stuff plugged in. And also, instead of using so much heat and air conditioning, just add insulation to your walls and attic. It will keep your house the temperature you want, and just if you really need to use a little bit of air conditioning or heat, then do it, but only a little bit. We don't need to be changing it every 5 minutes because we are bipolar in our bodies. The last topic we are going to talk about in our podcast is ocean acidification, which is an uptake of CO2 from the atmosphere, and it can negatively affect marine life, causing organisms, shells, and skeletons made from calcium carbonate to dissolve. That is scary. Think about all your bones dissolving for no absolute reason at all. The more acidic the ocean is, the faster the shells dissolve. This could also alter marine food chains and food supply to humans. Acidification could also decrease storm protection from reefs, tourist opportunities, and other benefits that are difficult to value. Meaning that not only are all of the fish going to be so confused, what happened to my meal? And all the little snails, oh my goodness, what happened to my cousin? The ocean will not be the same if we keep on letting this happen. But also, what about us? No more escargot, no more sushi, no more anything with our marine life, no more crab. Think about that.
No more king crab or snow crab. No more crab feet. Oh no.
Let that sink in for y'all.
Let it sink in.
We'll give it a minute to sink in. Alright, now that it's sunken in, you guys will rethink some things. Today, more than 1 billion people worldwide rely on food from the oceans as their primary source of protein.
Yummy.
So some people don't have chicken or Chick-fil-A or Cane's. They only eat sushi. I mean, not the worst, but if all the fish are dying, what are they gonna eat?
Or what if they have parasites?
That is scary things. Approximately 20% of the world's population derives at least 1/5 of its animal protein intake from fish. See you next Tuesday at 2 a.m.
Later.
Goodbye.